As promised, we're joined right now by a 7-time Pro Bowler, a Pro Bowl MVP, 9th-round pick by Houston in 1985 out of Northwestern. He is a member of the Buffalo Bills Wall of Fame. He is the co-host of One Bills Live on MSG Network and WGR Radio in Buffalo. He is Steve Tasker. Steve, it is great to have you on the show. Steve, how are you?
I'm great, Romy. Thanks for having me on. It's good to talk to you again.
Always good to talk to you, Steve. How you feeling about things? The divisional round, so much going on in the town. How do you feel about your team? How do you feel about things overall?
No, they're pretty good. I mean, this is still a really good football team. I've said it here locally, and anybody listen to me, nobody believes me, but this team in Buffalo has been good enough to go to and win the Super Bowl for 3 years. But they haven't done it. They haven't even been there yet. Something seems to derail them every year, but they are really, really good. They're very difficult to beat. They're 24-5 over their last 29 games. 3 of those losses were by a total of 8 points. The other 2 losses were in overtime to the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. They're tough to beat. They should feel really good, but, you know, when you get into the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, I'm pretty sure the Bengals feel really good about their chances, too. This should be a really good game.
We're talking to Steve Tasker. I'm going to ask you about that matchup in a minute, Steve. But before we look ahead, maybe a quick look back. I mean, a win is a win. There are no style points. Survive and advance. But what were your biggest takeaways from their win over Miami?
I was just talking about this to my co-host on our show. The Bills looked a lot like the Kansas City Chiefs in that win. They get taken to overtime by a team like Houston a month ago. This team, they literally look like they're playing with their food until they decide to win. They just win. You know, they've just got such a huge engine under the hood that once in a while when they get distracted looking at their phone in traffic, they forget that they should put their foot on the accelerator. Or they put their accelerator, they're just racing around, taking all these chances down the field, knowing that when push comes to shove, they got the guys that can just go in and score. They go out to a 17-0 lead, fool around for 2 quarters, lose the lead, and then just say, okay, fine. They score 2 quick touchdowns, take the lead back by 10, and then just simply coast to the finish line. They looked distracted by the game, and it's something that I haven't really put that into perspective before, but that's exactly what they look like. They're really good, and sometimes they just I think the big picture gets in the way of what they want to do play to play.
We are talking to Steve Tasker. I think that's so interesting what you just said. I mean, how much of that, and I say this with the utmost respect, like Josh Allen is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league, one of the most dynamic quarterbacks ever already, but how much of this is about him maybe looking at his phone or playing with his food? Because he does overcome. Like you said, there is so much under the hood that he can make up for the mistakes, but there were 3 more turnovers on Sunday. How big of a concern are these mistakes now that we're into the divisional round and they're looking to not only get to the Super Bowl, but win it all?
Yeah, there's no question. I think it is all about Josh. I think his team is dependable. Defense is very good. Maybe not a number 1 overall like it was a year ago. Certainly a top 5 defense in the NFL. They're going to be fine defensively. The weapons, you can make a case, no question, that Cincinnati has much more proven and much more dangerous weapons from top to bottom on the outside, with Joe Burrow as well pulling the trigger. But it is in Buffalo, it is about Josh. And when, for instance, in the playoffs last year, they put together an absolutely perfect game against New England. When he gets into a zone, he's as good or better than anybody else. And this team is really almost, it becomes impossible to beat unless they hand it to you in some crazy way, shape, or form. Even the losses they took this year had that ring about them where the Bills just looked like stupid mistake here or a mistake there or a snafu there, and they give the game away. That's where they're at right now. And certainly if Josh Allen shows up in Buffalo this weekend, and goes high percentage and takes the check down, takes the big play when they're there, yeah, this team becomes really difficult to beat. Certainly in Buffalo, they're almost impossible to beat. But they got the best team coming in to do it. You know, the AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals certainly have the guns to stay with them on the scoreboard, and it'll remain to be seen whether, you know, they can keep Joe Burrow clean enough to just hang in there with Josh Allen. But, yeah, you're right, Romy. When push comes to shove, the engine under the hood in Buffalo is Josh Allen.
We are talking to Steve Tasker, breaking it all down expertly. Steve, you know as well as anybody, the support the team gets from the Bills Mafia, there certainly is nothing like it. But has Damar Hamlin's road to recovery brought this community even closer together than maybe it's ever been?
Yeah, I think so. But I'll say this, Romy, in the aftermath of Damar's collapse in Cincinnati, I've never been around a team or a locker room or a building that was going through what the Buffalo Bills organization was going through in the 56, 72 hours after the Damar Hamlin incident. It was really, really, really difficult. It was a very difficult week here. I didn't know if the team would ever climb out of it, and the only reason they did was because of the positive results that came out of Damar's at the hospital in Cincinnati when Damar came out of it. The Bills' season was going away completely if Damar didn't pull through and didn't make the progress that he did. And certainly in the aftermath, I still think, and Damar is now is in the building here at One Bills Drive. He's in the building kind of hanging out. He's not going to meetings and stuff, but he's rehabbing. He's doing some stuff, continuing his recovery here in the building. His coming back and bouncing back the way he did was really the only reason the Bills could actually even go out and suit up against the New England Patriots in Week 18 and play at all against the Miami Dolphins in the wild card round. It was a very difficult week here, and I think the team and the fans should be really proud of these players and coaches for coming out of it the way they did.
I think what you said, Steve, I've never heard it put quite like that. I think that's chilling but understandable. How much of that is about one of their fallen brothers and family members enduring something like that, and then them seeing something they have never seen before and will never unsee? And then how much of that is about the individual himself and how special he is?
Yeah, and you're right, Romy, and it's all intertwined to a certain extent, obviously, the kind of guy Damar is and the effect it had on him. Football players, I think, professionally are used to seeing a guy down on the field. In fact, sadly, I'm sure fans are as well. Even in the game between the Cowboys and the Bucks late on Sunday night, they carted Gage off the field, and you kind of grow immune to it. This was very, very different than that. Damar was, without a heartbeat. He was not breathing. And they were frantically working to save his life. And the players stood there, and not only did they see it, they were asked to come in and shield the public from seeing it. Yeah, it was rough. And I think if it doesn't turn out now the way it has over the past week and a half, I think the NFL season is very different. And it is about Damar. Damar is a sensational dude. Happy, just a great guy. He's just a gregarious, heart's in the right place, hardworking guy who's a great teammate, great friend, good son, good brother, great family. His mom and his dad were with him through the whole thing. Yeah, when bad things happen to good people, we all feel it, and Damar is a great example of that. All of it is intertwined, Romy, but if it works out any other way than it did for Damar, the Bills are out of the playoffs already.
I think you make such a good point, Steve. And then you're right, the entire NFL season and then going forward, I think we see everything differently. And it's so awesome that it turned the way it did and there was such a positive response and he rallied the way he did. I got to ask you, Steve, as one of the great, great special teamers ever, what was it like then when they take the field and Nyheim Hines houses not one but two kickoffs in Week 18 versus the Patriots? As somebody who was as good at this as anybody, what went through you when you saw that?
It felt supernatural.
Right.
It really felt like, God is real. It felt miraculous, transformative, fairy tale, storybook, amazing, mind-blowing, historic. None of those words fully describes it. I told my guys, I have never in my, I'm 60, Romy. In my life, I have never had a moment in time blow my mind like that kickoff return in the New England Patriots game for the Buffalo Bills blow my mind. Nothing has ever blown my mind the way that play did. It was supernatural, and everybody in the stadium could feel it.
Steve, that is such an exceptional statement that you've been around the game your entire life and never experienced it as a player. Like literally in all your years of playing and covering the game, you have never had that feeling once, ever, in any game, watching, playing, or otherwise?
Not even close. It was absolutely supernatural, higher power, miraculous. And I know there are people I know nobody in the stadium will ever forget it. Jim Nantz won't, Tony Romo won't, and neither will the ushers in aisle 25. They won't forget it either. It was absolutely a moment in history I will never forget, and it blew everybody in the whole place's mind. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I'll leave you with this thought, Steve. If what you're saying is true, and I know it is, and 70,000 plus had the same feeling in the same moment, I can't even begin to imagine what the energy, the supernatural feeling in that building must have been like if everybody felt the same thing at the same time. And you can't really describe it.
It was, you're right. And that's really what added to the moment was, half the people in the stadium were jumping up and down and cheering, and the other 50% of them were absolutely wiping tears and breaking down and weeping openly. It was pretty amazing. It was the full range of human emotion wrapped up into a single moment, and we got to witness 70,000 people go through it all at once.
Such an amazing conversation. Steve Tasker is 7-time Pro Bowler and co-host of One Bills Live on MSG Network and WGR Radio in Buffalo. My guy, can't say how much I appreciate that, Steve. Such a great job as always. Thank you very much for doing that. That was awesome.
Romy, thanks for having me. It's great talking to you again.
You're the best. Steve Tasker, Bills Mafia, how about that? Does not get any better.